Welcome, 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 everybody, to the very first Trading Battle live debate. Today, we have something incredibly exciting, which is our very first, as I mentioned, debate between two experienced veteran traders and investors in markets. And to kick this off, let me just preface this between everybody who's here. Let me give you an idea of how this is going to work. Everybody who's in the audience probably has a personal bias about gold versus Bitcoin, which is today's debate. Which asset is the better one to hold on to? Which one is going to perform better in the coming years and arguably even decades? Where is your money better parked? Now, of course, none of this is financial advice. This is just a couple people who have a love for markets debating in a healthy discussion type way whether gold is the right place to be for a store of wealth, safety, or return overall versus Bitcoin, which of course is the newer kid on the block. In today's debate, we are going to also be letting you, the audience, decide who the winner of this debate truly is. It's very, very exciting because, again, this is a new kind of novel idea that we've never done before. We are facing a little bit of technical difficulties on the backside, so please be patient with us as we kick off the debate. We're waiting on one of the debate contestants to arrive, having some difficulties on the backside. But again, these are live streams. These sorts of things happen. Technical difficulties are a part, unfortunately, of live streaming. But we are going to be, for starters, just doing a quick little introduction to who our contestants are going to be. And let's go ahead and roll really quick our introduction clip. All right. Well, we've got two Nicks here. We're still giving Gary just a moment to join the stream. First, of course, we have in the crypto corner, we have Nick joining us here from Lady of Crypto, right? So it's good to have you here, Nick. Thank you for being on the debate. And before we have Gary join us, can you just give us a little bit of a high-level view of your background, who you are, and just your thoughts overall in terms of why you're standing in the corner for crypto / Bitcoin in general?
Yeah, so I'm Nick. I've been trading for 23 years. Started off in stocks, then quickly moved to Forex, and then moved to crypto in like 2017, and I've been in crypto ever since. Yeah, I'm from Lab of Crypto, not Lady of Crypto. It used to be called Lady of Crypto.
Lab of Crypto,
problem,
yes.
No problem. It used to be called Lady of Crypto, but now it's Lab of Crypto. But also now I'm the founder of Tube AI, which is a YouTube AI platform that powers your YouTube channel,
Cool.
which is my new startup. So yeah, I'm gonna be talking about Bitcoin. I see a lot of people in the chat are saying gold. Come on.
You've got to, I'm not going to lie, Nick, you have a little bit going against you here, but that's okay because I think you're qualified. I've seen some of your content, you know your stuff. And I do want to also just, for the audience sake, when we get into the voting and we get into some of these conversations, I would encourage you, even if you are more of a gold bug or more of a crypto bug, listen to what these guys have to say and make the case based on that. On what they have, the merit that they make, the cases that they make more so than anything else. So Nick, in terms of cryptocurrency, do you remember the first time you ever bought cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I mean, I said I started in 2017, but that's when I actually got into crypto.
Yeah.
My actual first ever purchase of Bitcoin was in around about 2013 or 2014. Can't remember the exact year. I bought a bunch of Bitcoin because my mate told me to get it. And I was just into Forex, so I didn't really know much about it. Bought a bunch, went up a bit, I sold it all, and I was like, yeah, damn, I made so much money. It was barely any money. I mean, and obviously had I held it since 2013, I would have made a fortune. But is what it is. I got back in 2017, and it's been a good run since then.
Great. Great. Okay, very cool. And on the backside, I believe we have Gary is now ready to join the stream. So what we can do here is maybe just play that intro one second time here just to reintroduce our two guests, and then we'll bring in Gary into the conversation to kick off our live debate here. So stay tuned. All right, he has arrived. Mr. Gary, how are you?
You know what, Nick? I'm doing all right. I just don't know what's going on with the stream at the stream right now, because the audio is so soft. I can hardly hear you, and I have tried everything I possibly can to go ahead and get this thing working. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like you may still have some technical difficulties. Maybe we can let Gary back out of the stream here. He can kind of hear us. What I would suggest is on the backside, if someone could send to Gary's phone the StreamYard link, I feel like that might be a fix. So if you send it to his phone, he might be able to join it. It might be some sort of issue on his computer side. Sorry, everyone, for the delays. These are things that happen, like I said, on a live stream. I think what we can do here, like I said, on the back end, if we could try and send a link to Gary's phone or have him access it from a different device, it may be a little bit less quality, but at least we could get him into the stream and get that working. I would recommend to just try it on a phone.
Well, I debate with the chat until
you could debate yourself. That would be really interesting for us to watch.
Well, I actually hold some gold too, so I could debate myself for sure. I'll debate with the chat because I saw an interesting comment about if there's a nuclear war, Bitcoin's going to be useless, and I don't really understand that argument, right?
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, if there was a nuclear war, you've probably got more things to worry about than gold and Bitcoin. But like, let's pretend that there's a nuclear holocaust and you're one of the few people left, then yes, technically speaking, gold would probably be better if you've got gold bars stored in a safe somewhere that you can then take out and somehow keep safe.
Right.
Okay, I accept that argument. But if there's not a nuclear holocaust, which is probably the most likely scenario, okay, let's be honest, Bitcoin's better. So if you have to make an argument that gold is better because of a very specific world-ending scenario, then I think you're already in a losing position, because you can make all kinds of extreme arguments to support your point, but the reality is, in our day-to-day lives, Bitcoin is far superior, and it's been proven. I mean, this isn't something that's even worth arguing about. If you look at the adoption of Bitcoin in countries where their currency is collapsing, such as Turkey, rampant inflation. And I was saying this to the Trading Battle guys before this debate, just in doing some basic research for this debate. You look at Turkey, strong history of gold ownership, fourth biggest consumers of gold on the planet. Culturally, gold is very important to Turkish people. Their currency is going to crap. What do they turn to? They've turned to Bitcoin. They're not using gold. They're using Bitcoin in their day-to-day lives. And this is true of Argentina. They don't have as strong a cultural link to gold, but regardless, they're turning to Bitcoin. All over South America, Bitcoin is sweeping because there's inflation is horrible over there. So, people are voting with their wallets, essentially. They're voting with their actions, and the vote is going towards Bitcoin. And we could theorize all day. Sorry, I'll let you go, Nick.
No, I was just going to prompt you because I love where you're going with this. I guess, while we wait for Gary to arrive, the next step anyways was to give a little bit more background as to why, I think that gold and Bitcoin, to your point earlier, you own a little bit of gold. I think there's a case for both of them, and there's pros and cons of each one. But clearly you've made the decision that you think in terms of a bigger picture, zoom way out, you think Bitcoin is the place to be in terms of the longer term. And you actually highlighted something that I wanted to ask you about in terms of defining like why Bitcoin. One of the biggest criticisms that people would say is that like if you have some sort of major market crash, some sort of fallout in the traditional financial world, the question would be, does Bitcoin hold up and actually move higher in that environment? Or does it plummet? I think that the true, crypto hodlers, the people who truly believe in it, and I'm going to speculate that maybe you think so as well, it would hold up okay when everything else is falling down, or at least perhaps a little bit in tandem with gold, where gold can hold up decently well in a down market. What are your thoughts on that in terms of crypto never really seeing like a true like 2008 type of environment? How do you think crypto would hold up in that environment?
Well, realistically, I don't bullshit people. In that environment, it would likely go down. But I do think there's always a danger of looking at a specific short period of time, because 2008, it was a short period of time that the markets went down and they started recovering. All right, I'll give you, to get back to the peak, for SPX, for example, of where it was pre the crash, it took longer than a short time. It was, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but it was quite some time. But the actual like crash part, that was over fairly quickly. So you could always like take a 1 year period or even a let's say 18-month period and say, well, this asset outperformed that asset in that small period, so it is a better asset to hold. But what we're discussing today is over the 5 years, over the 10 years. And over that period, there's no doubt that Bitcoin is going to outperform. I mean, it has been outperforming for 15 years. If you look at returns, like 26,000% or something like that over 10 years versus gold's 100%.
Sure.
I mean, there's no question here.
I think it's definitely been, in terms of the last, since inception, really, clearly the winner. I think we are now going to try and bring Gary back into the stream, so we can go ahead and just bring him in here, see if he is in a better spot. Gary, do we have you now?
Yes, you have me now. Sorry.
All right.
I do apologize, man. Oh, this is Friday. Must be the Friday the 13th. Oh no, it's not. Okay.
No worries at all, Gary. This is we build in a little bit of buffer room for live stream difficulties. All that matters is that you're here now, and it actually worked out fine because Nick was actually just giving a little bit of his introduction, and so now we can jump right in if you're good to go. I'm not sure how much you heard of his, but you are in the defending role of gold as the better longer term asset. And you can define that however you want. I guess, I think that Nick already mentioned that he has a little bit of exposure to both gold and to Bitcoin. Gary, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, but then why you ultimately chose, what your reasoning is, why gold is the superior asset. And I'll give you just like a minute to introduce yourself and to explain a little bit of your background as to why you think gold is the place to be.
Well, look, we got to look at a couple of things here. First, number one, are we looking for short-term gains, or are we looking for long-term holds? I know that that the crypto market is certainly a very high sort of interested asset for a lot of investors when it comes to risk assets, because it is. I mean, you can make a lot more money very quickly with Bitcoin than you would with gold. But you got to take a look at the history. If we talk about the store of value, then we have to look at the history of where gold's been and where gold is today. And if we look at the proven track record of gold has actually got a reliable store of value for over 5 years. We're talking about empires, currencies, we're talking about economic collapses, but gold remains valued. We also know that it is a non-digital, which is non-sovereign, which means it's immune to hacking, blockchain failure, and of course, government digital control. All of these things play a big role. We also know that during crisis period, this is a good hedge for hedging. All right, we're talking about it performs well during geopolitical turmoil as well as financial crisis. So when you look at the history of gold and how stable it has been over long periods of time and through different types of market conditions, it has definitely sustained and held its ground. Where if we take a look at Bitcoin, and trust me when I tell you, I am absolutely involved in crypto and investing in crypto, because everyone should have sort of like a high yielding portfolio, or these high risk portfolio that they're looking for high yield, and the crypto market would certainly be that. But crypto, we have hard cap supply. We know that it's Bitcoin has a fixed supply of about 21 million right now, 21 million coins, with no central bank there, which is fine. But we have decentralized borders as well, which means we have resistance from government, possible seizure manipulation compared to the fiat. As well as we have the growing adoption, right? So there is a growing adoption, which means that there's an increasing acceptance of institutions and investors like BlackRock, Fidelity, ETFs. This gives some sort of legitimacy to that to Bitcoin. But coming back to the question, would I see which asset do I see as a long-term sort of store of value? It would be gold. But I'm definitely not saying don't invest in crypto, because it definitely has great value and quicker returns.
I think the conversation that we're ultimately having here, guys, and again, I think all three of us have a scenario where we can see both of these things doing well. I think the bigger question that is ultimately at play for ourselves and for the viewers here is ultimately a question of allocation. Should you allocate very little to the crypto high flying, high risk, high reward type of environment, or should you be more aggressive because that's where the potential for giant wealth creation is? That I think is ultimately where we're going, guys. We have 40 minutes left of this debate, so I want to jump into our first prompt here. So maybe we can go ahead and real quick set up our very first prompt. For everybody who is listening here in the audience, do me a big favor, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe. We got people from all over the world. Let us know where you are tuning in from and what your preferred. Are you more of a gold bug or a Bitcoin person? Let us know in the audience. We're going to go ahead and real quick play our first prompt and begin our discussion. So one thing I think crypto people and gold people can kind of come together on is that human beings have a tendency to do some crazy stuff. Governments, crazy outlandish spending, inflation, wars, all these things that go on in our real world environment. This whole debate is centered around this question of like, what do you do with your money, right? Like, do you hide somewhere like Bitcoin? Do you hide somewhere in gold? So this first prompt, I know we've kind of already started on this conversation, but I want to go maybe Nick first here on this one. In terms of store of wealth specifically, or store of value, right? Where you're putting your money, where you can actually defend against ultimately these forces of inflation, manipulation, central banks, all these things that people have worries about. Where is the superior store of value? And of course, Nick, defending crypto, we'll let you have a few minutes to kind of outline your thoughts on this.
Yeah, the superior store. First of all, we need to make a distinction between crypto and Bitcoin, right? That's the most important thing, because I've already heard so far in this debate that crypto is volatile. And yes, crypto is volatile. Bitcoin is less so. And you can't just lump all of them together. Altcoins are incredibly volatile. And I would never recommend anyone holding an altcoin as a store of value. That's absurd. Maybe Ethereum, but even that is just not really worth holding as a store of value. Holding Bitcoin as a store of value, completely different story. And history has proven that. I mean, Bitcoin's been around for like 15 years now, and it just keeps going up and up and up. Over the last 5 years, it's done, I can't even remember, but gold's done like 100% or what in the last 5 years. And crypto has done bloody 500, 1,000%, whatever it is. That is, actually, I think it's 1,200%, if I remember off the top of my head. versus gold's like 100%, right? So 12 times more. But the most important thing that I think we need to consider, and something I was talking about before Gary came in, is look, we could sit here and debate this all day from our personal experience living in nice countries, being, I would say, most of us here in this chat today are reasonably well off. We could argue this back and forth all day, but the truth is, what are people using in countries where their economy is collapsing? And that is Bitcoin. They're using that as a store of value, right? So you got Turkey. I was talking about Turkey earlier. Currency collapsing, inflation is rampant. Strong history of gold. Fourth biggest consumers of gold on the planet. Very, very embedded into their culture. Yet they've started using Bitcoin. 52% of people in Turkey are using Bitcoin day to day. They're using it as a store of value. Argentina, same thing. There's like $85 billion worth of transactions in crypto, not just Bitcoin. They're kind of using stable coins a lot too. Venezuela, massive adoption of crypto there. All over South America is sweeping. So when you ask, is this a store of value? Is it a hedge against inflation? People are voting with their wallets. And in these countries that are actually experiencing these problems that we can only imagine and that we can only theorize, they're actually doing it. They're using Bitcoin as a store of value, as a hedge against inflation. So I think that's the ultimate argument here. We don't have any lived experience, but these people do. And what are they picking? They're picking Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great point that you make in terms you bring up the ability, especially if anyone here in the audience, I'm sure if anyone in the audience is from a place where they have experienced high levels of inflation, the pain that comes from that. I just know from personal experience transacting with people in places where they have had a devastated currency, they're very quick to use cryptocurrency in their everyday lives. So in some ways, that's a great point about a store of value that is just using it in their everyday world. So of course, I want to give Gary a chance to respond to this same prompt here, store of value showdown, right? So between gold and Nick seems to be leaning heavily on, of course, for good reason, the original cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. And I do like the distinction that he made about altcoins being something different than specifically the one that has the true longest track record of Bitcoin. Gary, what are your thoughts on this same prompt?
Yeah, I agree with Nick in a lot of ways with regards to you got to look at both the assets, and then you have to evaluate both the assets as to what are the requirements, number one, number two, to get involved, and then that's number one. Number two is then to look at what is your goal, all right? What is your intention? If it's just store of value and you're trying to grow your money, then yes, there's definitely, and you mentioned earlier on, Nick, that you have to look at how much allocation are you putting into the different assets? Because and I've been now over the last year looking to invest in gold, and we're talking about physical gold, right? So what are the sort of steps to do that? Well, we all know that we have to physically buy the gold, find a place to store the gold. It's all of those things that take place. We also know that there back in, and it's way before my time, in 1933, we had the gold seizure. So we also know that there could be a time where the government decides, hey, listen, they're going to start taking gold away from people. And that also puts a little bit of risk as well, because people say, all right, good, I've got gold, I'm investing for long term as store of as a store of value, but also that could also be something that could be taken away. We know that Bitcoin has extreme volatility, which somewhat undermines store of value because of the claims of adoption is still speculative. It's not really something that people would want to invest in and hold for long periods of time. Because of the volatility, people get worried, and you can see the sort of the movement that we've seen in the crypto market. It's pretty violent in some days. Not that that's not something that most people would invest. Now, I know Nick mentioned about Ethereum, which I put a lot of money into Ethereum just 8 months ago, and I've made 3x on that. Not 8 months, sorry, actually less than that, 4 months ago, and I've made 3x already on Ethereum. So there is definitely quick profits and high potential to earn good money. But would I keep it for long periods of time? Well, maybe I would start considering that sort of that allocation and say, well, if I invested 100K and I made 300K, then maybe I'm taking 200K and I'm putting putting it back into something more stable, like perhaps gold. And so there is a sort of like a window of opportunity where you want to invest into crypto because there's a faster return in money or ROI, but also at the same time, do you want to hold it for long periods of time or look for something a little bit more stable like gold that you can get a steady and a slower return, but not as volatile?
Yeah, and again, bringing up these two assets definitely have a very clear difference in their volatility. So I think that's worth bringing up too, because again, to your point, Gary, if you do need to make some sort of transaction where you need to sell some Bitcoin in exchange to do something in the real world with it, which is ultimately this prompt, right? The store of value, you make the point that again, if you have to sell it when it's down, that does cost against you. In which case, still the same thing can happen with gold. But because of the lower volatility, it's less likely that you're going to be selling it 25% down from the highs or something like that. So great points, I think, on both sides here in terms of this store of value. And again, in the nature of debate, we are here kind of discussing the differences here. And before we move on to the next prompt for the listeners, we are not necessarily saying that one is good, one is bad. But what we are actually saying is that should you have a significant allocation? That is the bigger question. Should you be putting a good bit of money into Bitcoin or should you put it into gold? And so having this healthy debate of which one is the better performer is not necessarily the same as saying which should you allocate heavily to crypto or should you stay parked more heavily in gold? I think that's kind of the conversation here that we're having. So we are halfway through in terms of our timeline here, guys, but I just want to, for everybody who's in the audience, I want to take a quick second to let you know that as we are doing this debate, you can vote for who you think or which case is being made better. We're going to drop a link here in the chat to where you can fill out this form. It will also allow us to see your thoughts on the debate, which we may bring up in conversation here on the screen. So take a second if you haven't already. You can use this link to put in your question and to pick a winner on this debate throughout the stream. Of course, if you want to reserve your judgment, I would encourage that. But if you have like a specific question that you want to drop into the stream, do that there as well. We're going to go ahead now with our second prompt and stay tuned. We'll be right back. This time we'll let Gary take it first. So the next prompt here, and I promise, Nick, you'll get your chance to respond here too, because this is a good one. Accessibility, utility, and future relevance. Which asset is more adaptable and accessible for future generations, a physical metal or a digital ledger? And if I could add just a slight variation into this conversation, not only accessibility, but when it is accessible to a future generation, where is are you going to get a lot more out of it with having that money being in crypto or Bitcoin specifically or gold, right? Because obviously if something is physically buried on your property, that's accessible, but hacks, things like that, are they really something worth risking or discussing? Let's go ahead and give it to Gary first here. Accessibility, utility, and future relevance in favor of gold. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So again, we go back to the comparison. All right. We talk about gold. We talk about Bitcoin. What is the comparison? So gold is universally recognized, right? Right. Every culture, government, and we have economic understanding of gold's value. We have it's tangible, right? We got physical gold, and it cannot be erased or lost with a forgot password. I mean, that's the one big thing that I think a lot of people fear when it comes to crypto market is if you ever forget your what is that number called again? It's the
seed phrase.
The phrase, yes, the safe phrase. So if you forget that phrase, I mean, I know I've got some crypto in one of my wallets that I'm like, I just completely forgot about my safe phrase. Fortunately, it's not a lot, but it's like now I'm sitting here every day trying to figure out where is it? Where did I put it? But yeah, so physical, you can't it can't be erased or lost with of course the forgot password. Then you have, of course, the use of beyond wealth storage, which means jewelry, electronics, aerospace. All of these things are real world industries and cultures that are in use. All right, where we use gold in so many other areas. When we talk about cryptos, we have future wealth. Of course, you mentioned that, and I think a lot of the youth today, I think they don't see gold as valuable as they see crypto, because this is the new age, the new world. People looking at things that are quick, microwave sort of responses, right? You need everything quick, and so they want to go ahead and put something in there, and they don't want to wait, 50 years to get a good growth on their capital. And this on next point, if you take a look at gold, what is the growth we've had in gold over the period, over the last 5 years compared to what we had in Bitcoin? And we absolutely have surpassed the value, or at least the returns on Bitcoin. So it's those type of things. So we have a lot more younger adoption in gold, in crypto, than we have in gold. But also, of course, we've got 24/7 market, global markets, unlike gold. The crypto market trades nonstop across the board, so it's a lot more accessible in order to be able to get and trade in gold than it is. In crypto than it is in gold. So it's all these things that we got to consider. And so if I go back to the question, and it says which asset is more adoptable. I would say that it is absolutely Bitcoin, although I'm in favor of gold. Bitcoin would be a lot more accessible, a lot more be able to control, and the adoption is there in the short term, a lot of adoption in the short term as well.
Sure. And of course, accessibility, utility, and future relevance kind of falls into what you mentioned previously, Gary, about the future relevance, arguing, I guess, the long term, where is crypto going to be? Where is gold going to be? I think it's fair to say that I think crypto is the more volatile one, bigger questions there, again, if you believe in it. But then gold, while you may forfeit some of the potential upside returns, is very likely to still be a relevant thing in the future. So great points.
Yeah, and I want to just finish off with this before we pass it over to Nick here again. We've got to think about this, right? This is the question. Ask yourself this question. How many people have asked, where do you think Bitcoin's going to go? Not many people say, hey, where do we think gold's going? Because the reason why, because gold is so much more stable. For crypto, people are questioning about it, and there's so many things. We're talking about, going to 200,000, going to 250,000. They had the same thing with Ethereum. It's going to reach 7,500, 20,000, 25,000, even can get to 50,000. So, I mean, everyone wants to hold on to something of this big dream of where it's going to go. But yet gold, people don't talk about gold as much as they talk about Bitcoin, because it's so volatile. And so people say, well, are you investing in gold? Sure. No one says, where's it going? Because they're just saying they know it is a stable and long-term investment. But when it comes to the crypto market, I know that a lot of people have asked me, Gary, are you investing in the crypto market? Are you investing in Bitcoin? Can it go to 200,000? Everyone wants to throw money. And I'm like, yeah, sure. If you buy Bitcoin now and it goes to 200,000, what are you making? 100% of your capital. All right. So where's gold right now? Gold's sitting at 3,500. It was sitting at one stage 1,500. So yeah, so we made $1,000. What is that? Probably another 60% on growth. So you got to look at where's the economy going, where's the world economy going, and what's going to outperform, what's going to be more stable and more sort of a solid investment, making sure that if you're investing your 401k into something, it's not going to be blown overnight compared to what we would have in the crypto market. So you got to look at the stability and what is your intention investing into that market.
Okay. Thanks, Gary. We'll go over to Nick now. So same prompt and any carryover responses from the previous prompt, feel free, give you a few minutes to discuss your thoughts on prompt number 2.
Yeah, I wanted to go to something that Gary said. No one's asking where gold is going, but they're asking where Bitcoin is going. That's a very important question, because I think people should be asking where gold is going. One of my good friends is... He hasn't told me a lot because he's under NDA. What he's told me is free from the NDA, right? He works for Jeff Bezos. He's an engineer, and he's working on building Bezos's space mining dream, asteroid mining dream. Out there in asteroids, there's quadrillions of dollars worth of gold, more than there is on the entire planet. So I think people should be asking where gold's going, because he tells me that by 2035, they're going to be mining asteroids. The first attempts are going to be happening around then. Well, actually, no, the first attempts have already happened, but you know, the point is at an industrial scale. And then there's going to be a flood of gold coming back to this planet. And then where's gold going to go when the supply increases dramatically? We all know supply and demand, it's going to crash. So people should be worrying and thinking about where gold's going to go long term, because we are going to be mining it from asteroids. But anyway, yeah, Stephen Miller in the chat saying you're mad 2035. Hey, look, man, maybe I am mad, but I'm talking to an actual engineer who's working on these projects. So I'm not mad, he's mad, but it's his job day to day. So I think he knows more than both of us.
Buy 100K, buy 100K right now, right now.
So, I mean, that's the reality of it. That's what the engineers who work for Bezos are saying. And there's a lot of shit that he can't tell. Sorry.
It's okay.
There's a lot that he can't tell me because he is under NDA. But you know, maybe I'll fly over to Texas and get him drunk one day and see if he tells me some more stuff. But yeah, people should be worried about where gold's going. But you know, when it comes to accessibility, etc., I mean, Gary has said it all. He's fought my side for me. He agrees that Bitcoin is more accessible. I mean, like the divisibility of Bitcoin, one Bitcoin is divided into 100 million Satoshis. So, you know, it's divisible. You can't really divide gold that much, right? You know, you're going to get down to a speck of gold, like some gold dust that you pour into someone's hand to buy some milk. You know, it's not divisible. And then there's the barriers of a physical metal, where you could do kind of, you could send Bitcoin from the UK to Australia in minutes. You can't do that with gold. So, you know, there's all that kind of stuff, instant global settlement. I don't think there's much else to say about this one. I mean, this one clearly goes to Bitcoin in terms of accessibility, utility. And actually, I wanted to say one more thing, because you pointed out younger generations, Gary. It's a really good point. 51% of Gen Z owns crypto, which is nuts. Like 51%, that's a huge number, and it's only growing. But they don't own gold. None of Gen Z cares about gold. It's like, so if we're talking about the future relevance, it clearly goes to crypto too, or to Bitcoin.
Yeah, and it's like I said earlier, it's like they just want to earn this sort of like microwave approach to investing. It's like nobody wants to, trust me, I have older kids. My kids are 20, 28, 29. In fact, my son trades with me. We both we trade together in our company, and but yet there's still the mindset, even though he's not a Gen Z, but the mindset that he has is still, hey, how can I make quick money? How can I make quick money? They just want to make quick money. And sure, we all want to make quick money, but in reality, we have to have something that's going to be a little more stable. And therefore, we have to look at diversifying our risk and have some risk assets, but also at the same time, make sure we have something more stable.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, great points by both of you guys. I think that someone in the chat says this, and I want to steer not too close to this because this is in the nature of a debate where we're going to find the differences. But someone pointing out that their view on it is Bitcoin when it comes to day-to-day consumption, but gold for future relevance. For me, true Bitcoin can be split into bits. Just reading some comments here from the audience. Nick, my one concern with Bitcoin is not knowing who or what country created it and their true intentions. So, you know, mining.
Can I just
go for it.
I mean, that doesn't matter anymore, because sure, what country created it, you know, that would have been a concern years ago, but at the end of the day, it's open source, and we know everything that we need to know about Bitcoin, and it's now a distributed ledger. There's like tens of thousands of miners out there, probably more than tens of thousands. I don't even know the amount of miners, I'm just guessing, but there's so many miners out there. So, you know, whoever built it and what their intentions are, we don't know. We can never really know. We can assume. But the tech is out there, and now it's in the hands of the people. So whoever built it originally can no longer control it. The only thing that would concern me from that is Satoshi and his wallet. He's still one of the biggest holders of Bitcoin. I don't think he's the biggest anymore. I think BlackRock has taken over. And if that is actually some entity that wants to destroy Bitcoin, if they start dumping from that wallet, the price will be affected. But
Nick, while you have the screen, I had one other question for you to think about just from the audience here. They said, and by the way, for listeners, if you have a question that you would like to submit, as well as your vote on who you think is leading the debate, we'll drop the link again in the live stream chat. Take a second to fill this out, and we only have a couple questions here. So if you drop it and you want it featured on the stream, here's your chance. Somebody said, with quantum computing, which is kind of the latest cutting edge world in the crypto space, I'm paraphrasing what they said, but they basically said, do you think quantum will shake cryptos? And do you think there will be a new coin after the real rise of quantum, which will outperform at least Ethereum? Again, making a speculative commentary there. But is there any risk with quantum computing, with the rise of like all sorts of potential for hacks or cybersecurity is kind of a never-ending fight? Is there risk there to the crypto accessibility? Like, is there a possibility that there is, we've seen hacks in the past. Is that a real risk to crypto? And I guess I know we're pausing between prompts, but just in tandem with what you were saying, Nick, what are your thoughts on that?
It is a very good point about quantum computing, because quantum computing is a risk to more than just Bitcoin. It's a risk to your bank account.
Yes.
It's a risk to everything, right? Now, the thing that a lot of people don't understand about Bitcoin, and no problem if you don't understand it. It took me a long while to kind of understand this, is that Bitcoin is not the same as it was, as in the software itself is not the same as it was 10 years ago. There are people who are together improving the software constantly, and it needs to be approved by miners. Honestly, I don't really know a whole lot about the whole technical side of Bitcoin. I'm an investor, right? But my understanding is that it's improved. It has to be approved by all the miners, the thousands and thousands and thousands of miners we talked about. So Bitcoin can be updated to be quantum resistant, right? It can be updated. So I don't worry too much about that, because I know that it can be updated. And honestly, quantum computing just worries me in general, because I start thinking AI is so powerful right now. What happens when AI has access to quantum computing? And I think, when we start to think about all these potential future issues that we face with AI, like Bitcoin and gold and all that kind of stuff starts to become a bit irrelevant, and you have to think about greater things. So quantum computing is something to worry about. I don't think it's necessarily a concern for Bitcoin. I do think it's maybe a greater concern for humanity, perhaps, but we're going there anyway, so let's see.
Well, and new technologies are not only a risk to cryptocurrencies. I'll give you guys a quick example, and we got to move to our next prompt. I found out about this recently, but I don't know the technology name, maybe you guys do, but there's a way you can actually scan physical landscapes and heat seek gold within them, which to me poses a risk to, if you had physical gold trying to hide it or keep it somewhere, if thieves, which is the biggest thing, right? Your physical gold can be stolen from you. Like your cryptocurrency can be stolen online, your physical gold can be stolen from you too. So there are risks to everything in markets, nothing in our lives are risk-free, truly. So there's something to be said for both sides. There's risk that. Before we move on, Gary, do you have any thoughts on just this concept of theft, whether it be crypto or gold? Is there a reason why gold in this case is superior?
No, and so again, we go back to the one of the flaws with gold is the difficulty to store security in large amounts. So if you got large amounts, you got a problem. You're digging holes in your back garden to store. Then that, or of course take it to the bank and that. But that's the problem. It lacks sort of innovation and in evolving utilities. They need to improve that. Where crypto, yes, requires we've just spoken about theft. What about requires electricity, internet, digital latency? So all of these things are important for us to be able to access crypto. What if we have a what's it, EMP? EMP. What if we have that? What do people do over the next, let's say it takes them 2 months to get electricity back online or internet back online or all that stuff? And these are the type of things that really I think about when it comes to security with regards to whether you're trying to store gold or you have crypto. What is the accessibility with those type of things, you know? And that is a concern. Yeah.
But most people don't hold, like, that's the other thing. I always hear this EMP argument, Gary, and most people don't actually hold physical gold, right? They invest in gold as a store of value. So if an EMP happens, they're cut off from their gold, probably more so than they cut off from their Bitcoin, right?
And Nick,
you're in the same boat there, really.
Are you referring to, when you say invest in gold, are you talking about ETFs or, vault held gold? I think Gary is arguing a little in favor of physical gold, right?
Yeah, physical gold. Yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for physical gold, obviously, if you're holding physical gold in your house, that is in the event of a kind of cataclysmic global crisis where, nuclear holocaust or an EMP, for sure, gold is going to win out there. But everything has its pros and cons, right?
Yeah, and I think what it goes with trading, right? When you're looking at a chart and you're trying to put a trade in, or you should never have the fear of what you're going to be doing. So if you're going to be looking at a chart, you buy euro, US dollar, whatever that, or even buy gold, spot trade. You should never ever have the fear like, oh, when I push this trade, could there be a fundamental announcement? Could there be a new Trump tariff? Could there be this? Could there be that? It's like you have to realize there are going to be risk in investing overall, whether it's property, whether it's gold, whether it's crypto, whether it's anything. But you got to make sure that you do take the steps to secure yourself as much as you possibly can, but at the same time, don't fear the markets.
Great stuff, guys. And I want to continue. I mean, this is fantastic conversation. And I think the value to listeners is amazing here, because again, what we're really ultimately thinking about is, look, there's risk to everything. We're talking about here the long-term debate between gold and Bitcoin. And the thing here is, there are risks to both, but at play here is, ultimately our financial futures, right? So it matters that we really think through these things. So if you're enjoying this conversation, listeners, do me a big favor, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the Trading Battle. We are planning on doing more debates in the future, and I feel that this is some really high quality content, and appreciate being with both of you guys here. We're going to keep going. We have our third prompt. So we'll go ahead and play that, and then we'll get right back into it. Real quick before we do, remember, if you want to vote, we'll drop the link one more time in the chat where you can vote on who the winner so far in your view is, as well as ask questions for us in that form. Stay tuned. Here is prompt number 3. So this is arguably one of the most important arguments, I think, here to have in regards to Bitcoin and or crypto in comparison to gold, which is the inflation hedge or speculative bet discussion. We've heard a little bit from both of you guys. Nick, you seem more of, obviously as you're in that side of the ring, right? A little bit more of a defender as crypto as this long-term standing thing that will be around for the long term, that is being adopted by the younger generation and will likely continue to be a part of our everyday lives. That sounds more of the former, right? More of an inflation hedge, more of a long-term standing asset, versus the speculative bet, which Gary has made the point that keeping a smaller allocation makes more sense because Bitcoin is very volatile. It could go up significantly, could go down significantly. Can crypto, because again, we've sort of all agreed, for the most part, we know, at least we can agree on gold's volatility is likely to be less than Bitcoin's. Direction is up for debate. Nick, you brought up the point about, if we start mining it in space, that could seriously impact the supply demand. So the price of Bitcoin or gold could go down. But I do think it's fair to say most likely volatility is likely to be less for gold than for crypto. But the bigger question becomes, can crypto truly be an inflation hedge? Or Is it just another high-risk tech asset masquerading as digital gold? Does it trade like a tech stock, or does it trade like a true store of value for the long term? I'll leave this to open to either one of you guys if you feel more compelled to go first, and then give the second person the chance to respond.
I'll take this one first if you don't mind, Gary.
Sure.
Look, if you asked me 3 years ago, I would have definitely said gold is the true inflation hedge, and Bitcoin has no business being called an inflation hedge. I've heard people say that for as long as I've been in crypto, and I never believed it, I never bought it, but recently my opinion has been changing on this, and it's because we're starting to see true institutional adoption of Bitcoin. I mean, Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, he's come out in massive support of Bitcoin. I mean, they've done the ETFs, they've also done the Ethereum ETFs, and they're building a lot of infrastructure around Bitcoin. So, you know, it's getting institutional validation now, which immediately makes me think, well, if the institutions are adopting it, and then we were talking about Gen Z, 51% of them, if they're adopting it instead of gold, it starts to make me, and actually also the Bitcoin treasury companies, we can't ignore them. That's a super important thing that a lot of people aren't realizing is happening. So there's a lot of companies like MicroStrategy, now called Strategy, they're becoming what's known as Bitcoin treasury companies, and now there's over $164 billion of Bitcoin held, which is like 7-point-something%. I can't remember, but it's over 7% of the supply of Bitcoin is held by Bitcoin treasury companies. It's absolutely mental. So if these big, massive companies with billions of dollars to spend, from BlackRock to MicroStrategy to MetaPlanet in Japan, are all starting to buy up vast quantities of Bitcoin, that tells me that this is finally fulfilling the claim of being a true inflation hedge. But you know, if you asked me 3 years ago, I would have said that that's nonsense. But today, I think it is.
I think just to add on to what you're saying, Nick, about the last 3 years specifically, inflation hedge might mean a little bit more now than it did 3 years before that. We've seen a phase of inflation in the last few years. And yes, you have the CPI, but really, even beyond the CPI, certain goods, the thing that we care most about, food, energy, housing, has seen even more inflation. And so to your point about true inflation hedge, if you're looking at absolute returns, crypto has actually been able to generate you something substantial beyond just, you know, if you had your money sitting there, not only did you defend yourself from inflation, you had, you know, significant return. I think you also have had that on gold, but you've had more so on crypto. So great points there. And especially relevant, I think, to your former point, which I think is very strong, about the concept of places where inflation has been far more painful than places like the US, right? The US, we did experience inflation following the COVID pandemic and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But beyond that, places outside of the US experienced much more painful inflation. And so this may feel even more of an important prompt. Gary, I want to give you a chance to respond because, of course, we have a little bit of, a period here where cryptocurrency has done phenomenal. Is there reason to doubt that that is likely to stay the case? I'm curious on your side of this. Do you think Bitcoin, to your former commentary about how it is a very volatile asset, do you think it leans more towards a speculative bet and is truly more of a short-term asset as opposed to gold being kind of a 5,000 plus year inflation hedge? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so if we look at if we do a comparison again and look at the history, historical performance of gold, gold often rises, these increases during high inflation periods. I mean, we saw that in the 1970s. We also know that when we see and it happened this morning, if you look at the price of gold and look at the price of the dollar, we saw dollar falling short today because of the jobs that came out. Non-farm payroll jobs came out, terrible results. What happened? Dollar started falling, and this was also because of the possibilities of rate cuts as well coming up as well. But we saw the dollar falling. But what happened to gold? Gold started rallying. Now we're also seeing Bitcoin actually rallying today as well, off the news as well. So we've seen Bitcoin and gold rally, and dollar falling. So we have an inverse dollar relationship. Gold tends to increase when the fiat currencies weaken. We also have proven hedge, right? We have trusted central. We have the central banks that are worldwide that have quite a bit of reserves in gold, and tons of reserves in gold. So there is definitely that trusted sort of relationship when it comes to central banks. Crypto. If we look at the crypto, we have the scarcity argument, right, where we talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin supply is fixed, and therefore it's making it. It's somewhat theoretically, it's making it inflationary resistance. Then we've spoken about the store of value, where the younger generation view Bitcoin as a more of a digital gold. You mentioned that as well, Nick, digital gold, and that is their sort of adoption when it comes to hedging. They see that, say, hey, investing into Bitcoin rather than putting money into dollar. If dollar starts falling, they're expecting Bitcoin to rally. So it's all of those things that you have to consider, and also you have to consider the decentralized escapes, countries that have hyperinflation. We're talking about Venezuela, we're talking about Argentina, we're talking about all these countries that have high inflation. Bitcoin offers them an alternative to the worthless local currency. So it's those things that you look at, and you sort of like weigh it out. And when you do that, you certainly see that the crypto market does offer a lot of escapes or a lot of opportunities for certain investors and even certain countries.
Great. And before we get into the final phase of this debate, which is going to be rebuttals, give you both a chance to kind of respond to everything we've heard from the counterparty here today. I just want to remind to the audience, just another reminder, we are going to be taking some questions from you guys in the form of this Google form that we're going to drop in the live chat. If you have any, if you want to weigh in on who you think makes a better case, gold versus Bitcoin, Gary and Nick here, please take a second to fill out this form that's just been dropped in the chat for you. And then we can get right into that. So we've had over the course of this conversation, great points made for both. And there are pros and cons, obviously, with everything. There's risks and reward to everything in markets. Nick, I want to give you the chance here first in terms of rebuttals / just in general, reflecting on what Gary has said relative to yourself, and maybe the nail in the coffin, if you would, on why you think the better longer term place to park money in terms of a not necessarily just absolute return, but perhaps like well, however you define it. If you want to define it as absolute returns, risk, Sharpe ratio, whatever you want to define it as. What final thoughts on your commentary in favor of Bitcoin over gold in response to what Gary has shared with us?
For me, right, you mentioned CPI, right? And, CPI, it comes in at a few percent here in the UK, and they're telling us that inflation's not that bad. But then whenever I go to the grocery store, over the past few years, my groceries have gone up 50, 60, 70%. I don't even really keep track. And, I'm in a fortunate position where I can afford these things. But I do think about, everyone around me, people in less fortunate positions. How are they affording to live? So my mind always goes to, in the last few years, if they bought gold and they held gold, they would be in a better position than if they just held the pound or, in America, the dollar, whatever. But if they bought crypto, if they bought Bitcoin, not crypto in general, they'd be in a far, far, far better position than either, right? And, we could argue all day about the volatility of Bitcoin. Yes, it is volatile. Yes, there are periods where it goes down, but overall, over its history, it's done nothing but go up. I shouldn't say nothing but go up. Over the longer period, it's gone up, right? If you look, I can never remember the returns. There's some obscene number, like 70,000% or whatever. It's an absolute absurd number. So it is more volatile. I believe it's becoming less volatile as it grows, as institutional adoption happens. It's becoming less volatile. And with, as we mentioned, Gen Z, 51%, all that kind of stuff, it all comes together to make it that I just think it's a better place to park your money. I think it's a much safer place to park your money long term if you have that long term mindset. But you are going to have to sustain some drawdown with Bitcoin that you wouldn't necessarily sustain if you were holding gold, unless this asteroid mining thing kicks off in 10 years and then gold's screwed. But yeah.
Sure. And great points. Again, I think one of the things that I hope maybe someday in the future, not necessarily anytime soon, because I would love to see crypto and gold both continue to move higher, but maybe we'll have this debate at some point, rehash this conversation again after we do have some volatility in Bitcoin. Because of course, right now we have a little bit of a home field advantage with crypto having such a good stretch. But again, Nick, it sounds like you are very rooted in why you like Bitcoin specifically for the long term. And I imagine that you'll stay standing just as strong in the event that we do have some downturns. As you've mentioned, you've done this since 2013 initially, 2017 later. So you've seen your fair share of downturns. So you're not coming at this from only ever seeing it, when it's good. So great perspective there. And thank you for sharing that and everything else. Gary, your turn here in terms of final thoughts, rebuttals as to why you still would say the better place to park money in terms of a heavier allocation, at least, would be gold.
Yeah, so this is obviously not financial advice, but this is certainly my perspective of what I believe is the right thing to do. And it's not about whether I support gold, support Bitcoin. It's about what is the best way to approach investing, and that's what you got to look at. So the best way to approach investing, in my opinion, would be saying, take Bitcoin, use it while you've got the opportunity to make quicker returns. Then take that money and put that into something more stable. I do believe gold would be a safe, stable investment over and above Bitcoin. But I do believe Bitcoin can give you much higher returns because it's still speculative. There is a lot of upside potential. That's the difference between Bitcoin and gold. That gold does not have as high upside potential than what Bitcoin has. There's so much, and that's what makes it so attractive, is because people are looking for, especially the Gen Zs, especially the younger generation, because they're looking to get into that new home in the next couple of years, not necessarily waiting 5 years before they can afford to put down a deposit on a home. So they want to go ahead and invest, but they also want to invest and get their house paid off very quickly. That's sort of the mindset they have. But coming back to the final thoughts with regards to what is the best option, invest in Bitcoin. Absolutely. Use the opportunity, make as much money as you possibly can, but be cautious, and take what you make in profits and invest that into something more stable. It could be even investment in property. It could be in so real estate, or it could be in gold. But put your money into something that gives you that has a long sort of historical history of results. As gold has. I mean, we know that gold's been performing well over the last 3,000. I was going to say 3,000 years, but yeah, it's been performing pretty well over the last decade. And so you definitely want to say, hey, I'm going to put my money into something that's stable, but at the same time, I'm not going to walk away from something that's going to be a great opportunity to make quicker profits.
Fantastic. Yeah, great commentary from both you guys. Final thing here I'd like to do is just give a chance to respond to just a few of these questions. I've got one handpicked from the audience for each of you guys just to respond to. And again, as we go through these audience members, if you would like to cast your vote now, you've had the chance to hear everything they've had to say. If you want to cast your vote on who you think presented their argument better, Nick or Gary, you can do so using the link in the description down below, or we'll drop it in the chat as well, to where you can find out where you can vote on this debate. We're leaving it up to the crowd in terms of who the winner is. And just by glancing, I can see it on my side. It's pretty close. So cast your vote. Help us determine who the winner of the debate here is. So my first question is going to go to, well, let me read it and we'll see who it goes to. But looks like a pretty good question. So a significant portion of Bitcoin is held by a very small percentage of the total number of wallets. I think you mentioned a little bit of this earlier, Nick, so we'll get a little bit more from you on this, I think. With such a high concentration of ownership, How can Bitcoin truly be a decentralized store of value for the masses? Doesn't this high concentration of wealth make it difficult for the average person to acquire and own a meaningful amount, potentially limiting its widespread adoption as a global store of value and creating a new kind of financial oligarchy? First of all, whoever asked that question, that's a great question. And thank you for sharing that. The other thing I guess I would just add on to that first part, where a significant portion, you mentioned earlier, Nick, this concept of a lot of the wealth is held, or a lot of the cryptocurrency is held in one specific area, one wallet. What are your thoughts on there? Is there a risk to that high concentration that, one of the famous conspiracies or speculations is that actually it's the U.S. government that created it and owns a whole bunch of it? I always find that fun to think about. What are your thoughts on this concentration idea?
Isn't everything concentrated though? Like financially, right? The US dollar is concentrated. I can't remember the exact numbers for the US dollar, but the top 1% have billions and billions, while the 99% have less. And gold, I'm sure too, is heavily concentrated. The US government holds vast amounts of gold. I think Bitcoin is no different. I mean, wealthy people are always going to be able to accumulate more than people who aren't, and they're going to hold a vast amount of the supply of any asset. I've not really researched if this is a bigger problem with Bitcoin versus gold versus the US dollar versus anything else. I would think it probably isn't. I am not too sure and I could look that up right now, honestly. What percentage? See, this is a lovely thing about AI. You can ask these questions in seconds. What percentage of BTC supply the Satoshi own? Because I'd be actually interested in knowing that. But yeah, BlackRock owns a massive amount of the Bitcoin supply right now. I can't remember exactly what percentage they own either. And that is also a concern, right? So it is a very valid point. You have vast amounts owned by specific entities, but I don't see that as a concern, because that's a worry with everything, right? Gold is, the US government holds tons of it. So while it is something that is concerning, it's concerning for every asset you hold.
Sure. Yeah, no, it is a fair question to think about. Is of course the most financial assets do end up getting hoarded by the very ultimate wealthy, which can be central banks, can be high stake individuals. So it's a fair and a great response in terms of same too with gold. Very large quantities held by small groups of people. And I guess going off of that concept, this feeds perfectly into the question that I also get from the audience here for Gary on gold. And I think this is a really great thought. The question is, do you think major economies will look into dumping gold and moving towards digital currency soon, or eventually stop printing dollars? And the thing I want to add to that, kind of to morph that into what I think might be an even better question for our conversation here, is, as we've talked about throughout this entire program, we've talked about allocation, right? If that trickles up to the central bank level at some point, where central banks do also allocate, doesn't that take away from gold, right? So if they have a certain amount of assets they want to hold in-house, and they do start to allocate more to crypto at some point in the future, and I'm talking high stakes level, like central banks, ginormous financial institutions, hedge funds, does that in any way take away from the gold story? If they do validate and add more to something like crypto, or specifically, let's say Bitcoin, does that take away from gold in any way?
Nick, I can answer this in a very short sentence, and that is this. These central banks and all these big, high institutional investors and so on, they're all looking at the risk. And you have to ask the question about the risk, right? Would they been put, if Bitcoin is as volatile, and we all agreed Bitcoin is volatile, until Bitcoin becomes more stable as what gold is, then I don't believe that we're going to have this quick, swift move into using Bitcoin as sort of a stable asset to invest in. I think I think a lot of the reason why a lot of central banks hold gold is because it's a lot more stable. It's not since the history. I think I mentioned earlier on. I just can't remember what the numbers were, but I believe it was like we had like over 5,000 years of sort of like sort of historical data that proves that gold is stable through, as I mentioned, I think we had it was empires have fallen, currencies have fallen, economic collapses have fallen, but gold remains stable. And that's why a lot of the fiat currencies are backed by gold because of that reason. Is because it's stable enough, and I don't think that there'll be a quick shift to Bitcoin. Now, I said that it'll be a quick answer to the question, and I ended up giving you a long-winded story. But yes, no, I don't think that'll happen.
There won't be a quick shift, also because these entities, they move slowly. You know, it takes them a long time to change or to adopt anything new. But we're already seeing with Trump, love him or hate him, he is implementing a Bitcoin reserve for the U.S. Now, who knows if that's actually going to happen, and who knows if the next president after Trump, if he's a Democrat, is going to undo all of that. But America has sort of this kind of almost, out of the major powers anyway, this kind of they're the first movers towards adopting Bitcoin into an actual treasury. So we'll see what happens there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't think it's going to replace gold in the short term in terms of treasuries. But I still think that over, you know, the next 50 years, it might do. It's possible. I mean, over the short term, there's no way. And also, I wanted to, sorry, I just real quick, because Stephen Miller has said this a few times. I just want to answer his question directly. He keeps saying BlackRock don't actually own gold, and that is technically true. I mean, they offer ETF products, so they kind of like they don't actually own gold speculatively, or sorry, Bitcoin, but they don't hold either Bitcoin or gold speculative, right? They have a gold ETF, they have a Bitcoin ETF. They hold them. They have custodians for those two assets. And he said specifically down here, they buy and sell it for individuals. They don't own it for themselves on their books, which tells you something. But that's true of gold too. They don't own gold. The gold ETF that they have is the same as a Bitcoin ETF in terms of they hold it to back the ETF, but they don't actually hold it speculatively. So, you know, that argument cuts both ways, Stephen.
Sure.
And yeah, the ETF thing, it's also important to note that the Bitcoin ETF overtook the gold ETF in like 10 months after creation, which tells you something about the demand for Bitcoin.
It clearly is, whether, again, you mentioned a couple great points there, Nick, and I just want to follow up, final thoughts here on my side. One of the couple big questions that only the future can tell for us, and maybe we'll get the chance to have this conversation again, is, for example, a change in leadership in the United States. Does it become a bipartisan thing where crypto is adopted by both sides? Like we know semiconductors, right? That is bipartisan as anything. We got to win the AI trade. That's like the U.S. one thing we can kind of agree on in political land is we've got to win that side. Will it be the same for crypto? That's a big question. Another big question is if we do see a ginormous financial, crisis in our lifetimes again, how will that play out for Bitcoin? How will that play out for gold? We've seen how it's done for gold. Well, it's a big question mark. Nobody knows for certain exactly how it will play out. But I think some really great cases have been made for and by both of you guys here. For the audience, to me, this is one of the best trading battle content pieces that I've ever been a part of. So I'm honored to be here. And for you guys in the audience, if you enjoyed this, I've got a couple things for you. Number one, these are free and coming again in the future. If you want more debates, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe. We're trying to do something cool and add a lot of value to the trading community, which I think we've done here, thanks to Gary and Nick sharing some really great points here. Again, we are going to let this go to a vote, and there are 7 days that will be open for votes to be casted. So we'll give people a chance to watch back recordings of this and make their full decision. If you want to cast your vote in favor of Gary or Nick's claims here today, their stance, their position, I would encourage you to do so. And I would also encourage you, like I said, to subscribe for more content like this in the future. Before we say goodbye, Gary, where can people find you in case they would like to connect or hear more information from you in the future?
Fantastic. Well, yes. So I am with the Traders Network Club. So for those that are interested in futures trading, forex trading, automation, trade replicators, all that good stuff, check out Traders Network Club. We got YouTube channels, FX Big Dog. If you look down there, you can search me on FX Big Dog. Just type up in Google FX Big Dog, you'll find me. But certainly go to tradersnetworkclub.com. and you'll get to find me there.
Perfect. Thank you, Gary. And finally, Nick, where can people find you if they would like to connect or learn more from you?
Probably Lab of Crypto. Lab of Crypto Discord is probably where you would go. I'm in the Discord quite often, just chatting to people. It's my community. So yeah, just hop into the Lab of Crypto Discord. I'm also on YouTube on the Lab of Crypto channel. And if you want to check out my latest thing, my new startup, which is absolutely blowing up, nothing to do with trading, but if anyone has a YouTube channel and they want to use AI to power their YouTube channel, cut costs by 80%, and the content production process speeds up inordinately, check out tubeai.app. tubeai.app.
Awesome. Again, thank you both for your time, for your points here today. And thank you to the audience for joining us for what was the first debate ever on this channel. I thought it went really well. Great conversations, great points, and a wealth of knowledge between the two of you guys. So thank you so much for that. We're going to sign off here. Thanks to everybody for joining us, and we will see you back on the next trading battle. Bye, guys.
See you.